Hey, okay, so yep, we dressed up. Yep, he's Vincent Pooh. Yep, he's trying to be very scary, but we all know he's adorable. Nah, he's scary, very scary. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Vincent Price. I'm excited. As if you couldn't tell. Oh, I've been a fan of Vincent Price since I was a little kid. And not to get too ahead of myself, but like MTV used to show Thriller every year. And I don't know if they still do, but and of course, as a kid in the 80s, it was still pretty fresh. And so we would hear his voice, and that whole thing. But also, he was the host of Masterpiece Theater. He was also in several commercials and all of that. So, um, he was the other thing, and I wish they would show these, is I don't know if they do, like I don't watch TV, but his uh he was a co-host of cooking shows. I wish they'd show those. Him on cook, yes, show those because they used to. I remember seeing him on cooking shows. So yes, let's talk about Vincent Price. I'm gonna try not to look down so much so you see. I try really hard. I don't want you to see the top of my head. So anyway, so Vincent Price was born on May 27th, 1911. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri. His father owned the National Candy Company. I tried to find information on the National Candy Company. I was constantly directed to other candy companies. I was like, no, I want the one that Vincent Price Sr. owned. Show me that one. So if you know any information on that, please let us know. I'm interested. I would love to know if it's still running, what's going on. And his grandfather developed the first cream of tartar based baking powder. It was called Dr. Price's baking powder. And I don't remember what it was based before, what the base was before. And it but because let's see, do I have it here? No, I don't. Okay. I thought maybe it would tell me because, like I said, I have Wikipedia up just for reference, and it did not tell me. Now, as for his education, he went to St. Louis Country Day School. Then he went to Milford Academy in Connecticut. And he graduated Yale in 1933 with an English degree and a minor in art history. Now, he was a school teacher, rounding several different places wanted to tell me several different years. But I guess while he was attending Yale, he was also a school teacher. Because in 1934, he then enrolled in University of London. So he was done teaching and everything. But as he was teaching, he later said, I had the extraordinary experience of finding out I knew nothing. I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too well. So when he enrolled at the University of London in 1934, he wanted to pursue a master's in fine arts. However, he had an interest in theater, and that resulted in his acting career. So this is where it started. So in 1935, that's when his stage debut happened. It was in a London production of Chicago. That same year, he portrayed Prince Albert in Victoria Regina. Now, this is where it gets a little sticky for me. And I hope somebody can smooth it out because several different places that I went to try and find, where the nugget of truth was. Now, this play was very successful and it went to Broadway. Now, Vincent Price played Prince Albert both in London and on Broadway. However, it's not clear if Helen Hayes played Queen Victoria both in London and in Broadway. Okay. I couldn't find I was like, did she play that character, play Queen Victoria? She's not a character, she was an actual person. Let's just be clear on that. But did she play Queen Victoria in London? And everywhere I looked was different. So so I don't know. If somebody knows, please let us know, because I want to know. So while he was in New York, he started his radio. This is where his radio career started, and he joined the Orson Welles Mercury Theater Ensemble. Now, this actually helped independent actors, be it radio performers, theater actors, as well as film actors. The Mercury Theater is actually how Citizen Kane went through. I thought the Citizen Kane went through an actual, from what I was reading anyway. It's also where the famous radio recording of, the release of War of the Worlds that put everybody in a panic. And I will put a link in the description box. It's very interesting. And so now most accounts said that that Vincent just went through radio with Orson Welles, and that's what it looks like. I mean, I was able to find some pictures and he wasn't in any of the pictures, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, it could be that he was moving, shifting between Broadway and Mercury Theater, acting whenever he could. So that is a theory, that is not fact. just so we're clear. So Vincent then goes to Hollywood, and in 1938 his film debut is in a film titled Service Deluxe. And this film helps him to receive, he's quickly, it's like he does his film and then all of a sudden he's receiving lead roles and character roles. It's not like, oh, we like your look, can you do a background character? No, he's getting lead roles. A lot of them are time period, such as Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex, which was in 1939. The Three Musketeers, which he plays Cardinal Richelieu. Look, Three Musketeers, the one that I stand by is the one where Tim Curry plays Cardinal Richelieu. That is my all-time favorite. However, Vincent Price playing Cardinal Richelieu, this one also has the late Angela Lansbury, which I do want to make a video on her. It also has Gene Kelly. He doesn't dance. But it's worth watching. This one was done in 1948. So so he was playing all of these romantic and classical characters, which you would expect in like character roles, especially when they're time period. And I could see why. I mean, not to sound like a fangirl or anything, but when you watch even just an interview of Vincent Price, the way he carries himself, he's very suave, he's very sophisticated, and a gentleman. So I can see how he would land these roles. But the other thing that studios were noticing was that he was at his best when he was playing a villain. And a lot of times he would add like this dramatic effect or even a dramatic and comical effect to the to the villain, to the character. And it's best seen in The Invisible Man Returns in 1940. And The Invisible Man series is not my favorite. I mean, I'm just I read the book and I don't think that's H.G. Wells' strongest, but that doesn't mean I think for as much as we would make fun of Hollow Man, I think that's the best portrayal of it. And it's not because Kevin Bacon is in it. I really do think that that is a better portrayal of and everything. But and that's my opinion and I can have it. For those of you that are Titanic fans, I'm sure this little fact has made the rounds on the internet, but the woman who plays Old Rose, she is in The Invisible Man. So not The Invisible Man Returns, but in the first one that's from the 30s. So for those of you that didn't know. Yeah, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, and I'm sorry about that. Now, he's got quite the resume at this point in the 30s and 40s. So you would think that he had established himself in Hollywood. He hadn't yet. So we're now in the 50s, okay? His big break was with the film The House of Wax. This is a great film. Okay, if you haven't seen this film, it's fantastic. I mean, and for those of you that are like, well, I don't watch old films, you need to start. I mean, so this film was released in 1953. It's one of the first films that was shot in 3D, back in the day when they had the red and the blue. You see those people with those glasses on and everything. And now he plays this he plays this person who portrays himself as this kind person, but he's actually this murderous sculptor, and his victims are displayed in this wax museum of his. Those aren't spoilers, by the way. And I mean, this film established him as the master of horror. You watch the movie and you're just like, yeah, I can see it. And because the fact that you have somebody who is, yeah, and he also helped to reestablish the horror genre in cinema. Now, you think, but they were making the monster movies. Well, yeah, nobody else was really making movies and making the monster movies. I mean, you had like the radio shows, like Lights Out and Suspense and those. So you had the scary aspect to it, but for the most part, people weren't really interested in scary. Listen, because I did back in college when years ago, I was comparing Brendan Fraser's mummy with Boris Karloff's mummy, and I did extensive research and found out that people were scared out of their minds of Boris Karloff's mummy because it had only been 10 years since King Tut's tomb was found. And they were still into this whole thing of the mummy's curse. So they were running out of this theater just hysterical and scared. And So yeah, there were the monster movies like Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein and those and The Invisible Man, like I said before. But it when you look, it's like Universal is the only one actually making these films. And then and you also have Dracula and those. And then they did a like a they had a Abbott and Costello meets these monsters. And but again, that was Universal. And so there weren't very many scary films other than Universal putting them out. It was almost like Universal said, we're going to do this. You can correct me on that, but that's, when I did research on all of this, that's what I was noticing. So, I have no problem being corrected on that. So, I mean, he put out movies like The Fly, later the sequel, The Fly Returns, House on Haunted Hill. I have that one. And The Tingler wasn't the greatest. You also have to consider that by this time, Alfred Hitchcock had shifted and started doing horror. He had his TV series. Well, Vincent Price showed up in the TV series. And yeah, by the 50s, he was doing all those movies like Vertigo and all those. And so this really helped to bring back full swing the horror. And now Vincent did not just I'm trying to find the right words here. So now that he is doing these horror films, that's not all he did. That's what I'm trying to say. It was in there. I just wanted to come out. I mean, he did movies like The Ten Commandments, which I just realized a couple years ago that he was in The Ten Commandments. I've been watching that movie for years. Don't you hate that when you watch something for forever and then all of a sudden it's like, how long has that been there? What is going on? He also did comedies, like he did a movie with Bob Hope that was The Big Night, Casanova's Big Night, I'm sorry. That was in 1954. So he was switching back and forth. It wasn't like he just uh, stayed in the horror genre. And so then the 1960s happen. And this is when the films that are inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's works come around. And he also appeared with Boris Karloff, Basil Rathbone, Peter Lorre. So you get like the Black Cat and Pit and the Pendulum and The House of Usher, Tales of Terror, The Raven. There's also the Mask of or The Fall of Usher. What I'm trying to think of which one it is. The one about the Black Death. Yeah. And now the fun thing about this, and I didn't know this one, and he even parodied his gothic characters in movies. So there's in the movie Beach Party, yeah, he parodied, and I've never seen that movie. And also in Comedy of Terrors, he was in that one. I mean, there's several films, but those two are examples where you see him and he's parodying his gothic characters. And the other fun thing about him in the 60s is that he showed up in Batman. He had a recurring character in the Batman TV series. He's Egghead. And so yeah, I remember my mom telling me, yeah, you know that Vincent Price was in the Batman TV series. I was like, I never saw him in that. And she's like, yeah, he was in it. I was like, but who did he play? And she's like, Egghead. I was like, I've never seen that character. Oh, good heavens. And there are several behind the scenes pictures. Well, there's one in particular. I can't say there's several, but now, so what's fun about him, parodying his Gothic characters and everything is that he received a fan base with the younger generation as well. So because he can be goofy as well as scary, he received this whole new fan base and everything, and which worked quite well for him. Now, another thing that I was reading is, of course, Vincent Price was an artist. He was a painter. And he would donate his, I think he donated his, I'll double check on that and make sure, but he would also uh, donate to art charities, and there was like um I'll double check on all that information and put it in the description box. But as for art was something that was very important to him. And he uh he put money out to help with all of that. So I will of course correct myself in the description box and make sure that all that is correct. But one thing that I love about it is that he was on the Red Skelton show. And there's this whole thing about him being like this art, I think it's a curator or for a museum, and Red Skelton's character is like a homeless like person who found this rare Da Vinci and and called the museum, said that they have it, and it's just this whole thing of trying to get this rare Da Vinci. It's quite funny. It is. Now, by the 70s, uh, he cut back on acting and decided to devote himself to cooking, which was another passion of his. And uh, he co-authored several cookbooks with his second wife. Now, I remember as a kid seeing these cooking shows with him, and I wish they'd show those again. I really do. And because I'd love to see them. And and I remember seeing the cover. You see it where it's like Cookwise or Pricewise, or anyway, there were cooking books, and it had him on the cover. And I remember seeing those in the bookstore. And uh, so the other thing was that he did these like TV spots. I'm not sure exactly what they were, but I'm pretty sure that they were from the 70s. I don't know if they were from the 80s. And what they were was the stage was set up so that he could recite Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. And I'll of course put a link in the description because I found them. I and the thing about it is by the time I'm a kid, these are reruns and everything. So, but I'm pretty sure it's from the 70s. So it's probably from a late night talk show, him doing his thing, or from a TV series or a TV show, they asked him to do this. Whatever it was from, I saw it. And so this is I'm I'm pretty sure the 70s is also when his friendship with Elvira started. I I'm I don't want to say for certain, but it seems like in an interview that I saw with her, she said that's when they met. So I'll also put in a description box one of the more famous interviews that's from the very, I think it's 1980, and they're sitting together and everything. She's being interviewed, but he's there with her and everything. So, and it's supposed to be Halloween, I think. And but anyway, so he did return to stage in 1978. He portrayed Oscar Wilde in a play titled The Diversions and Delights. And another thing is that he would appear on TV shows such as The Muppet Show. We all know that one. People like to put that one up quite a bit. And that one, I think he was totally in his element. I think because he could just be as goofy as possible. He could show kind of a gothic side, but at the same time be as silly as ever. And now he was also in the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch did a TV movie where they went to Hawaii, and he was in it. And he also did a Dean Martin roast. He roasted Betty Davis. It's actually it's very fun. I'll put it in the description box and and he showed up on the Red Skelton show quite a bit. And so now by the 80s, he wasn't doing very much except for he was doing the Masterpiece Theater. He was hosting that. He did commercials that may have started in the 70s. And of course, he received the role as Radigan. He said that that was his favorite role ever. That was his favorite character ever. Now you consider how many characters he played, and then for him to say that he enjoyed that. And he also narrated, he and Tim Burton became friends. And he narrated the short film for Tim Burton titled Vincent. That's about Vincent Malloy. That's one of my favorites. Now there's a movie, I remember when, I mean, this was huge. This movie, people were excited to see it because it had Lillian Gish in it, it had Betty Davis in it, and of course it had Vincent Price in it. And the critics tore it apart. And I mean, I've never seen it because for the longest time you couldn't find it. Well, as it turns out, over on the YouTube page for Vincent Price, it's up. You can watch it. It's called The Whales of August. And this was one of his last acting roles. I believe the film follows two sisters, and Lillian and Betty are playing sisters. And so, I mean, it was a big deal because of having Lillian Gish and Betty Davis and Vincent Price together in this movie. And then, of course, Vincent's last acting role was in Edward Scissorhands. And And he was very, very sick when he did that movie. And then he passed away in on October 25th, 1993, at the age of 82. So anyway, that is Vincent Price.